Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to welcome you to today's seminar of the International Tree Mortality Network. We've been running these now for more than a year just to highlight research on mortality going on in different parts of the world. And today we're really happy to turn the focus onto Africa and in particular Rwanda, and welcome Bonaventure Ntirugulirwa, I hope I didn't mangle that too badly, I apologize, to introduce his work on Afrotropical trees in an elevation gradient experiment. So please, Bonaventure, the floor is all yours. Take it away.
Thank you. As Thomas said, my name is Ntirugulirwa Bonaventure. I'm a researcher at the Rwanda Forestry Authority and also a PhD student at the University of Rwanda and the University of Gothenburg, Sweden. I want to present about the mortality of Afrotropical trees in elevation gradient experiment. Increasing temperature may cause hydraulic failure and or carbon starvation, which increases tree mortality. Heat stress may be stronger in late successional compared to early successional species due to the higher leaf temperature and low transpiration and large leaf size. Also, drought stress may be more pronounced in the early successional species compared to late successional species due to the more sensitive hydraulic structure. As a consequence, tree mortality causes the decline in the Amazon biomass accumulation and carbon sink. Trees in the tropical mountain forests are considered as vulnerable to climate change because they are adapted to moist and thermally stable climate, inventing lowland species. However, knowledge on the tree mortality responses of tropical trees in the projected warmer climate remains uncertain in global change ecology. Interspecific variation in mortality has a large influence on carbon storage in the biodiversity. The research question we have are the following. We are looking at to respond to the following question as the following. We are asking if is the temperature effect on tree growth and the mortality different from early succession or a late succession tree species? The second question, is the temperature effect on tree growth and the mortality different from species originating from higher, which is cooler, and low, which is warmer elevation? Yes, in other studies, we are also investigate if the temperature effect is modified by water and nutrient availability. The results shown today are from the first 2 years when the plant were irrigated. Material and method. To reduce the knowledge gap on the response of tropical mountain forests in Wami, we have established a field experiment along an elevation gradient in Rwanda, where more details can be seen in this website. The project is called Rwanda TREE. This is the website where we can find more details, information. So 20 trees species native to East and Central Afromontane from 2 forest types of origin, which we call transitional forests. They are located between 1,600 and 2,000 meters above sea level, and the mountain rainforest located at between 2,000 and 3,000 meters above sea level, and 2 successional groups, which are early succession and the late succession, were planted in multi-species plot at a tree site along the gradient. Tree mortality in the Sazovo was monitored regularly, and the results shown here are for the first 2 years, as I said before. So here is the map showing where the species from. The species from a high elevation, which is called the Sigira, located at 2,400 meters above sea level. They were planted at mid elevation at 1,600, and also were planted at low elevation, located at 1,300 meters. Then, from middle sites, also species were planted in the middle side and in high elevation site, and then in the low elevation site. This is a schematic characteristic of the treatment. So, as I said, this is an elevation gradient where we have at high elevation where we have more precipitation. We have the treatment to remove water using rain shelter. We remove water where the rainfall are more abundant, and where the rainfall are less abundant, we irrigate, we add water. And in the middle side, we add water and we remove the water in order to maintain the same precipitation. This is the plot design. We have it is a Sigira plot where we have a 60 subplot, and each subplot contains 100 species. In total, we have 1,800 trees or plant, and we have a repetition. Each species has replicated. This is air photo after 2 years. It is the site of Mido, where you can see different tree species, and also rain shelter to evacuate rainfall or evacuate water. And we also have installed the weather station to record some climatic data. We also, as I said, we installed irrigation system where to pump to pump from the dam up to the tank, and then from the tank to the site. And we use also sprinklers to irrigate each plot. The rain shelter are looking like this. This is a plastic sheet to remove water, and the width of the sheet depends on how much water we have to remove. This is the plant which has been established and which was irrigated. And so this is a big forest at one site, which we call a low elevation site. This is the results after 2 years after plantation, which has been in February. It has been taken in February 2020. And so results on the growth and the mortality example, it is an example because we have different figures. But here I want to show you that different species respond differently to warm climate. Here, for example, we can see that the warming or increase the temperature increases the growth in some species. And here also the growth is increasing. Why is it? Here we can see that there is no growth response with warming. We also taken some measurements in height and the diameter. Here this figure represented some results in height growth, where we have a succession species from tropical mountain forest in the Lake Victoria transitional forest, and direct succession from tropical mountain forest in the Lake Victoria transitional forest. So what I was explaining what we call tropical mountain forest, because they are forests located above 2,000 meters, and the wild transitional Lake Victoria are below 2,000 meters. And so this is figure show that trees growth terror in almost early succession, especially in the Lake Victoria transitional forest. The red one will represent low elevation site. You see, like the growth taller, especially late succession, early succession from Lake Victoria transitional forest origin. Also, early succession, tropical mountain forest origin, also the growth is stimulated by warming. Why? Some late succession, not some, but several late successional tropical mountain forests, the growth is not stimulated at one site. It's not stimulated by increased temperature. But some, not many, also they are stimulated by increased temperature. And so, at the community composition, we can say that this is early succession in proportion at the community composition level. We can see that in the dark green, light green, and dark green, this is representing early succession from transitional forest. We can see that the growth or the proportion increased from high to low elevation site, like this. In the contrary, the high elevation species, the growth increased from low to high elevation site. The community composition of 4 species groups was calculated based on the basal area, which is a cross-sectional area divided by, let's say a cross-sectional area of system divided by ground area. The treatment response is deviation from 25% of each group. So this figure shows how the mortality is, looks like. we can see that tree mortality increases at Wama site. You can, as you remember, this is low elevation, and the tree mortality was higher, especially in late succession. Tree mortality is very high. This was represented in the percentage. So we can conclude saying that mortality was higher in late succession compared to early successional species in a warmer climate, likely due to higher leaf temperature and the physiological heat stress. Second conclusion, tree growth respond positively to a warmer climate in most early successional species, especially in those of transitional forest origin, but not in the high elevation late successional species. So interspecific differences in mortality and growth responses led to modify the tree community composition in warmer climate, favoring lower elevation in the early successional species. So as a consequence, this has an important implication for biodiversity and carbon storage of Afromontane forests. So I thank you, but allow me to present this is my supervisor, this is me, my second supervisor, this is my colleague, this is also a PhD student. She's working on leaf morphology and nutrient composition. This is Yuan, also my supervisor, and those are my colleagues. And this finished her PhD studies. She's now doctor. Thank you very much. I finished.
Yes, thank you very much, Bonaventure, for this impressive design of the study. How many trees did you plant in total?
Which trees we find the total
number of trees?
Can you speak loudly?
How many trees did you plant in total?
This figure, you mean this?
No,
yes,
no, I'm just impressed how tall the trees got after 2 years, and also the experimental design. It looks like a high number of tree saplings that were planted. And
many of them are in early successional, because we have 11 early successional and 9 late successional. Many of them, 11, or are taller in the warmer site.
Yeah, in total you have 22 species, right?
Yes, they were 20, 11 early succession, and 9 late succession.
One of your main research questions was
at warmer site, early succession species.
Yeah, one of your main hypotheses was kind of that late successional species would be more temperature sensitive than the early successional.
Yes.
I assume with late successional, do you mean then shade tolerant species? So
yes,
rather the lower strata, lower canopy species, because late successionals might also be the uppermost, the dominant, the understory species, and they must be temperature tolerant, right? So is it really early?
We mixed species in each plot, and so yes, usually we know that late successional rock better under shade. You're right, but it is not the case, because it is the problem of sun exposed, not sun, heat stress. Because at Sigira site, here, for example, at high elevation site, many of them are exposed, but the growth rate of late successional species is good, meaning that the problem of sun exposed species is not the problem. The problem is heat.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, impressive design, I must admit. So Göran just wrote 5,400 tree individuals. So that's a lot of work to measure all these and to monitor all these, and especially the rainout shelters. I got highly interested by the true-fall exclusion experiment. How much true-fall do you collect, kind of? So what is the reduction in rainfall?
I didn't see. But
you showed the rain shelters.
Yes.
The true-fall exclusion. How much rain do you take away? What is the reduction?
Yes, here I have a figure. Yes, here. For example, at the higher elevation, where we have more precipitation, we remove 500 millimeter and 900 millimeter. Why do we add at the low elevation side?
Yeah, impressive.
Yes.
I did my PhD studies in the tropical true-fall exclusion experiment, so I know what a kind of work it is in that environment to keep that running and also maintenance. So we have another question. So you selected your early successional and late successional species. Do you know how they differ in drought tolerance or heat tolerance traits?
Heat tolerance
have to characterize some physiological traits. Also how these two groups differ in the tolerance.
Yes, we find that late successional species are non-heat tolerant, while the early successional species were heat tolerant because they grow better at warmer site. So they are stimulated by increased temperature.
Yeah. Because this thing is highly suited. It's one question from William Brown. He's also asking whether you have quantified or characterized plant hydraulic traits so far, which I myself also would find highly informative if for these species, if these traits would be characterized.
I didn't get your question, please. Maybe because I don't have it, my headset. Can you repeat slowly?
Maybe it's the second Bonaventure. can try. Sorry. Yes, please.
Maybe I can. I'm a co-supervisor of Bonaventure, but I supervise other students in the project that work more directly with hydraulic traits. So we investigate a rather broad range of different hydraulic traits, including hydraulic conductance, osmolarity, capacitance, sap flow, water potential, etc.
So the whole picture, kind of.
Yeah. And also one student is working with thermal tolerance, so we have quite a lot of data on leaf temperature and canopy temperature, and also heat tolerance based on chlorophyll fluorescence methodology.
Yeah, perfect. There's another question asking whether mortality might be lower in the late successional species if they were planted now in the shade at high or low. Also, if it's rather a shading component, which might explain the observed mortality rates, because now they're exposed to full sunlight, right? So if they would be covered by a net or something, do you expect lower mortality rates? Also, if you induce shade, but temperature stays the same?
Yes, we project, because we plan to harvest some trees. We can test planting late successional also under shade, and maybe we will see how what is the effect of shading or something. Yeah, we project, we plan.
Let me see if there are further questions. One is being typed. Did you see an effect of drought stress and nutrients, as a combination of both, on the mortality?
Yes, but it is the next, as I said. the nutrient is the next step, but we now, I presented the result of the first 2 years.
What do you expect? Phosphorus?
I expect that there will be some influence, of course. If you feed even individual people, when you are feeding and they have enough water, they grow well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we expect that. Of course, the nutrient is the food.
Did you observe, that's also, did you observe a relationship between the growth rate, within one species? Those that grew faster, did they show higher mortality rates?
They are mixed. We did it
okay,
take into individual.
Because I would expect that might be one result.
Yes, we have a long plan, a very big plan. We plan to even to establish a separate species, and we will take, and even we will compare with exotic species.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think
we have a big plan.
Yeah.
So this question will be responded.
Yeah. So I think we don't have any further questions. Once more, thank you very much for this interesting presentation and also that fascinating design in a tropical country. I'm sure that we will see many fascinating results coming up in the next years. I don't know, how long do you plan to maintain this experiment, kind of? Yes,
as I said, we can harvest. We plan to harvest in May, but the experiment will continue. We can even plant, as you said, late succession. I cannot say that the experiment is for a long time.
Yeah.
Yes, and the result from this experiment will also be extended. Will be also disseminated throughout the country in countries which are neighboring to Rwanda, East African. Yes.
So thank you very much.
A long experiment. Yes.
Sorry. Yes.
I can just add that so this harvest, the first harvest, is partial, so it's 20% of the trees.
Okay.
And we have existing funding for running the site for like 4 more years, I think, approximately. So it's quite long term.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much. So Bonaventure, once more, thanks a lot for today's talk. I will shortly introduce the next speaker. The next speaker will be Andreas Bolte from the Thünen Institute in Germany, who will present results from the natural inventory, forest inventory data in April. The next date will then be announced as usual. So once more, thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.